As mentioned in our last video, production design does more than just provide locations in which to stage the plot events that make up movie narratives. Production design is also frequently used to communicate implicit meaning, meaning that, in the case of production design, is implied through visual elements, and that can either be used to provide the audience with story information, to create symbolism, or to emphasize the movie's themes. In terms of how movie content, the story, is presented to viewers, the form, using production design, both story and plot information are communicated through sets and props. This includes characterization, providing information about characters, as well as both story details and plot details. So, for example, in this shot from the movie Children of Men, the newspaper clippings on the wall in the background of the shot provide the audience with backstory, background information that, in the case of the newspaper headlines, is never directly referenced in the film, but that helps the audience to fill in some of the blanks in terms of figuring out how the world ended up in the state that we see it in when the film begins. Likewise, the plot of the movie Arrival revolves around the main characters learning to understand and communicate in an alien language that is based entirely on visual symbols. It was up to the production designers working on the film to invent that language, and then to come up with a way to represent it on screen, as well as to find a way to represent the aliens and the humans communicating back and forth using these symbols, which is what we see in this shot on the bottom right of the screen. Implicit meaning related to both plot and themes is also communicated through production design. For example, in Bartholomew's song, the high degree of conformity that characterizes the world of the film is visually communicated through the uniformity in the color scheme and decor of all of the rooms in the compound where the story takes place. This is production design. It's also communicated through the similarities in the physical appearances of all of the characters, costumes, hairstyle, makeup, and the way that their movements are all synchronized, staging and performance. So we see here all of the elements of mise-en-scène working together to help emphasize the movie's themes. One of the ways that production design can provide story information is through the information that sets can reveal about characters in the film, their personalities, their tastes, their interests, their socioeconomic class, etc. This example from 500 Days of Summer is a shot that appears in the second scene in the film. It only lasts on screen for roughly 15 seconds, but in that time, the things that we see in the kitchen of Tom's apartment hinted information about his character that we learn in more detail later in the film. Here, the photographs of historic buildings reflect his love of Los Angeles' architectural history, while the drawings connect to his failed dream of a career as an architect. Production design can also provide us with information about characters' emotional states. In this scene in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Peter B. Parker's depression, his loss of confidence, and the crisis he faces concerning his commitment to his superhero mission, all of which are precipitated by the failure of his marriage, are reflected in the discarded clothing and takeout trash littering the floor of his apartment, his unmade bed, and the fact that we see most of his possessions still in boxes, suggesting he has not yet been able to bring himself to unpack them. In that same film, we also see an example of the symbolic uses of production design in terms of the mural that Miles paints towards the beginning of the film, and that functions in the movie as a motif related to both the coming-of-age and superhero plots that make up the movie's narrative. In the same way that sets can provide us with visual information about characters, they are also frequently used to provide us with visual information about the world of the film. In the movie Elysium, the desperate and decidedly dystopian condition of Earth in the year 2154 is perfectly encapsulated by this shot of Los Angeles from early in the film. The rundown state of the buildings suggests the high level of poverty among those still living on Earth, while both the accumulation of trash and the smog hint at the rampant environmental devastation that is ravaging the planet. The massive billboards hanging from the buildings suggest materialism and overconsumption, while the ramshackle structures crowding all of the available space on the roofs of the buildings hint at overpopulation. Finally, the police helicopters circling overhead provide a glimpse of both the police state and the widespread civil unrest that characterize life in the city in the film. The contrast in the film between the conditions in Los Angeles and those on the off-world colony of Elysium illustrate the ways in which production design can be used thematically. In this film, the inhabitants of Earth are made up largely of the poor and the working class, who are exploited for their labor, while the wealthy all live in luxury on Elysium. The class inequalities that are at the center of the film's plot, and are also one of its major themes, is emphasized by the striking visual disparities between these two locations. Like sets, props can also serve both a narrative function and a thematic function in movies. The whiteboards that the humans use to communicate with the aliens in Arrival, Ernesto de la Cruz's guitar, the theft of which is the event that sets the plot in motion in Coco, both the Infinity Stones and the Infinity Gauntlet in Avengers Infinity War, and the reel-to-reel tape recorder in Bartholomew's Song are all examples where props play a major part in the plot of the movie. One of the most famous examples of a prop that is used to communicate implicit meaning related to a movie's themes is the sled in Citizen Kane, which connects both to the title character's lost childhood and to the movie's ruminations on what gives life meaning, as well as the existential question of what any one individual life amounts to in the greater scheme of things. We also see the thematic use of a prop in The Dark Knight, in which Harvey Dent's habit of flipping his lucky coin at pivotal moments in his life takes on thematic significance after a tragic loss drives him to give up the fight for justice and become a villain bent on revenge. Harvey Dent's coin in The Dark Knight, as well as the things we learn about Tom in 500 Days of Summer and Peter B. Parker in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from the decor of their apartments, are also examples of the ways in which production design can additionally be used for the purposes of characterization. Our next video will take a look at the ways in which a movie's mise-en-scène can also provide characterization through costumes, makeup, and hairstyles, as well as through staging and performance.